The NFL world stopped dead in its tracks when a rookie quarterback did something that veteran players wouldn't dare attempt in their wildest dreams. Shedeur Sanders, fresh out of college and barely 3 weeks into his professional career, looked his coaching staff dead in the eye and told them their play calling was garbage. But this wasn't some behind closed doors conversation or locker room whisper. This happened with cameras rolling, teammates watching, and the entire football world about to lose its collective mind. Training camp in Cleveland was supposed to be routine. August heat, standard 11-on-11 drills, and the usual growing pains of integrating a highly touted first-round pick into an NFL system. Instead, what unfolded became the most talked about moment in Browns training camp history, and possibly the most controversial rookie debut since Johnny Manziel flashed money signs on national television. The whole situation started during what seemed like an ordinary practice session. The offense had been struggling through a series of uninspired plays, running the same predictable formations that the defense was reading like a children's book, when the offensive coordinator radioed in yet another inside zone run, a play they'd already attempted multiple times with zero success. Something inside Shedeur Sanders snapped. His body language changed instantly. The confident swagger that made him a college star morphed into visible frustration. He stepped away from the huddle, shook his head with the kind of disgust usually reserved for referees making terrible calls, and said the words that would launch 1,000 hot takes. "That's a garbage call, bro. That ain't gonna work. We ain't moving like this." Every single person on that practice field froze. Teammates stared in disbelief, coaches stiffened like they'd been slapped across the face, and even the handful of fans watching from the sidelines gasped audibly. But Sanders wasn't finished delivering his message. After half-heartedly executing the predictably failed play, which got blown up in the backfield exactly as he predicted, Sanders made the walk that changed everything. Not running, not storming off in anger, but with the kind of cold, calculated determination that separates leaders from followers. He marched directly toward the coaching staff with purpose in every step. Standing just feet away from quarterbacks, Coach Alex Van Pelt, and offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey, Sanders delivered the bombshell that's now gone viral across every social media platform. "We're out here going through the motions while the defense reads everything we run. This ain't gonna cut it. I'm not about to look stupid out here. If y'all want to win, let's run something that actually works." The silence that followed was deafening. You could practically hear the tension crackling through the humid Cleveland air. The team's in-house media crew captured every second of the exchange, and within minutes of practice ending, that footage was spreading faster than wildfire. By sunset, every major sports network was breaking down the clip frame by frame, and social media was absolutely exploding with reactions. The headlines came swift and merciless. "Rookie QB blasts coaching staff. Sanders goes rogue. QB meltdown or leadership moment." The story dominated every sports talk show, podcast, and newsfeed from coast to coast. But behind the sensational headlines, something much more complex was brewing inside the Browns organization. According to team sources who spoke off the record, head coach Kevin Stefanski was absolutely furious behind closed doors. The offensive coaching staff felt publicly humiliated and completely undermined by a player who'd been in the building for less than a month. Veteran players in the offensive line room allegedly called an emergency meeting to discuss whether their rookie quarterback had crossed a line that shouldn't be crossed. But the reaction wasn't universally negative. Some voices within the locker room, speaking only anonymously to local beat writers, expressed quiet support for what Sanders had done. One wide receiver reportedly told a journalist, "Look, he ain't lying. The defense has been smoking us all week. Same looks, same calls. Maybe it takes the rookie to finally say what we've all been thinking out loud." The controversy reached a whole new level when Sanders decided to pour gasoline on an already raging fire. That night, he posted a cryptic message on Instagram that sent the internet into absolute overdrive. "You can't elevate surrounded by those comfortable and average." No caption, no tags, just a dark photo of his cleats covered in practice field dirt, and those words that immediately got screenshotted and shared across every NFL forum and social media platform imaginable. That single post transformed what might have been a one-day story into a multi-week saga. The message was clearly directed at someone, and everyone assumed it was aimed squarely at the coaching staff he'd called out earlier that day. Sports analysts spent hours debating the meaning behind every word. while fans created memes and conspiracy theories about what was really happening inside the Browns facility. This controversy cuts far deeper than just one heated exchange at training camp. It exposes a question that's been haunting the Browns organization for over 2 decades. Does this franchise have any clue how to develop quarterback talent? The evidence suggests they absolutely don't, and it's becoming impossible to ignore. Cleveland has become the place where promising young quarterbacks go to have their careers destroyed. Tim Couch, the franchise's first pick after returning to the league, showed flashes of brilliance but was ruined by terrible offensive lines and constant coaching changes. Johnny Manziel arrived with superstar potential and left as a cautionary tale about character and preparation. Baker Mayfield had moments of greatness, but ultimately couldn't overcome the organization's dysfunction. Now there's the Deshaun Watson situation, which has become one of the most expensive disasters in NFL history. Shedeur Sanders didn't come to Cleveland expecting to become the latest victim of this quarterback graveyard. He arrived with championship expectations, elite confidence, and zero tolerance for mediocrity. When he looked around that practice field and saw the same patterns that had destroyed his predecessors, he made a choice that no Browns quarterback had made before. He refused to stay silent and accept failure. The reaction from NFL media and former players split along predictable lines. But the intensity of the debate surprised everyone. Stephen A. Smith weighed in on First Take with his typical passion. "I love that fire, but you better back it up. You're in the NFL now. Grown men get paid millions to do this. You want to be a leader? Fine. But now the spotlight's on you, and there's nowhere to hide." Skip Bayless took the opposite approach, blasting Sanders as another Instagram quarterback who thinks he's smarter than coaches who've been in this league for decades before he took his first professional snap. The criticism was harsh, but it reflected a generational divide about how rookies should handle themselves in professional environments. Shannon Sharp offered perhaps the most balanced perspective. "I've seen worse behavior from veterans who should know better. If this lights a fire under the coaching staff and makes them better, then good for everyone. But he better deliver now, because this kind of moment will follow him forever if he can't back up his words with performance." Even anonymous players from around the league chimed in through social media and text messages to reporters. One AFC quarterback said, "There's a way to handle stuff behind closed doors. You pull the offensive coordinator aside after practice. You don't put him on blast like that with cameras running. Now you've made it a circus when it didn't need to be one." But maybe the Browns needed exactly this kind of circus. The organization has been stuck in the same predictable cycle for decades. Draft promising quarterback, implement conservative play calling, show early flashes of hope, then watch everything collapse under the weight of organizational dysfunction. If Sanders' actions came from a genuine desire to break that cycle, maybe the delivery wasn't perfect, but the message was absolutely necessary. The next day at practice became the most anticipated training camp session in recent Browns history. Every reporter, blogger, and fan with access wanted to see how the organization would respond. Would Sanders be punished? Would the coaches assert their authority? Would there be awkward tension poisoning the entire practice? What actually happened surprised almost everyone involved. Sanders ran with the first team again, but something was noticeably different about the entire offensive operation. The formations looked more diverse. The play calling showed more creativity, and several deep passing concepts that hadn't been seen all camp suddenly appeared in the practice script. Whether this was a direct response to Sanders' criticism or simply coincidental timing, nobody could say for certain. The coaching staff maintained complete public silence about the incident. No press conference statements addressing the controversy, no disciplinary announcements, no public denials or confirmations. The team's social media accounts even posted photos from the next practice showing Sanders throwing passes with the caption, "Locked in," as if nothing unusual had happened at all. But behind the scenes, according to multiple sources close to the organization, the tension remained very real. Every move Sanders makes now gets scrutinized at a microscopic level. Every incomplete pass, every questionable decision, every sideline conversation gets analyzed for signs of continued conflict or emerging resolution. The spotlight that was already on him as a first-round pick became white-hot because he specifically asked for it. This situation could ultimately resolve in one of two dramatically different ways. In the first scenario, Sanders' leadership sparks genuine change throughout the organization. The coaches adapt their approach. The offense evolves into something more dynamic and effective, and the Browns finally become the team their talent level suggests they should be. Sanders establishes himself not just as a talented quarterback, but as the kind of leader who refuses to accept mediocrity and demands excellence from everyone around him. The alternative scenario is far more troubling for everyone involved. The organization bristles at being challenged by a rookie, coaches close ranks to protect their authority, and the locker room splits between players who support Sanders and those who think he overstepped his bounds. Sanders becomes just another promising quarterback buried beneath the weight of Cleveland's dysfunctional history. And the cycle of failure continues for another generation. What makes this moment so fascinating is how it reflects broader changes happening throughout professional sports. The old model of rookies staying silent, following orders, and gradually earning the right to have opinions is disappearing. Today's young athletes arrive with confidence, social media platforms, and zero tolerance for inefficiency. They've been treated like stars since high school, and they expect professional organizations to operate at the same level of excellence they've demanded of themselves. Sanders planted his flag the moment he walked to that sideline and told his coaches to be better. He declared himself not just as a player trying to fit into an existing system, but as someone who sees the game differently and refuses to remain quiet about it. Whether this was a brilliant leadership moment or a fatal mistake depends entirely on what happens next. The entire NFL is watching this situation unfold because it represents something much bigger than one training camp argument. It's about the evolving relationship between young talent and established authority, about organizations being forced to adapt to players who won't accept "that's how we've always done it" as an acceptable answer, and about the constant tension between respecting tradition and embracing necessary change. Right now, Sanders has made his position crystal clear. He's not in Cleveland to play it safe or accept mediocrity. He's there to change things, to break the cycle of failure that has defined this organization for decades, and to establish a new standard of excellence. The question isn't whether he was right or wrong to speak up, but whether he can back up his words with the kind of performance that transforms organizations and creates legacies. The Browns have a choice to make, and so does Sanders. They can either use this controversy as a catalyst for positive change, or they can let it become another chapter in the franchise's long history of dysfunction and missed opportunities. But one thing is absolutely certain: there's no turning back now, and the entire football world will be watching every single step of what happens next.